Imagine standing in a freezing, barren wasteland where the air is so thin that you have to consciously remember to breathe.
Wow, sounds relaxing.
Right. And you're looking out over these massive rust-colored cinder cones that they look completely alien.
Yeah.
And the wind is just absolutely whipping against your jacket.
Yeah.
Now imagine you paid thousands of dollars to fly to a tropical Hawaiian beach just to go do this.
It sounds like a massive contradiction, doesn't it? I mean, the ultimate goal of a Maui vacation is supposed to be pure, unadulterated relaxation.
Exactly.
They're trying to remove all effort.
Right. You picture a gentle breeze, a cold drink, deciding whether to float in the ocean or just take a nap on the sand.
Yeah, the toughest choice of the day.
But then you hear about these people who willingly give up 9 whole hours of that precious beach time to go do this grueling high-altitude hike on a dormant volcano.
And instantly, the vacation fantasy just screeches to a halt.
It really does.
The immediate assumption is heavy boots, sweating, gasping for air, and just ruining the relaxing vibe entirely.
Which is exactly why we're taking a deep dive into this today. So welcome to the Travel Podcast by ExcursionPass.
So glad to be here.
Yeah. And if you are joining us for the first time, our absolute favorite thing to do here is to act as your personal travel veterans. We know you probably have a mountain of objections about leaving your resort, so our mission today and every day really is to anticipate every single one of those doubts.
Right. We want to peel back the layers of the experience.
Exactly. We want you to understand exactly what it is, how it works, and why it might actually be the highlight of your entire trip. Today, we are heading straight to Maui to dissect the Haleakala Crater 4-mile hike.
And to give you the full unvarnished picture, we're synthesizing a couple of very different sources today. First, we have the official ExcursionPass tour listing for this specific 4-mile hike, which typically starts around $187 to $208.
But we don't just stop at the marketing copy.
No, to cut through that and get to the unfiltered reality, we cross-reference that listing with a massive stack of real, incredibly detailed TripAdvisor reviews for the actual tour operator.
Which is a company called Hike Maui.
Exactly, Hike Maui. We're looking at hundreds of reviews from people who actually pulled themselves away from the hotel pool to see if this volcano trek is really worth the effort.
Okay, let's unpack this. We really have to start with the volcano itself, because I think the mental image most of us have when we hear the word volcano is it's completely wrong.
It usually is. I mean, people immediately picture a steep, pointy, cartoonish mountain.
Like Mount Fuji or Mount St. Helens.
Right, a stratovolcano. Those are built by highly explosive eruptions where the thick lava just sort of piles up close to the vent.
But Haleakala is different.
Very different. It's a massive shield volcano.
Okay, stop right there. Shield volcano. What is the actual mechanism making that different from the pointy, explosive mountains we're all picturing in our heads?
It all comes down to the chemistry of the lava. The magma that formed the Hawaiian Islands has a very low silica content, which means it has a very low viscosity.
Meaning it's thin.
Exactly. It's incredibly fluid. So when it erupts, it doesn't violently explode and pile up into a steep cone.
Right.
Instead, it flows out gently and rapidly over enormous distances before it finally cools.
So if a stratovolcano is like squeezing thick toothpaste out of a tube so it builds this tall peak, a shield volcano is more like what? Pouring thin pancake batter onto a griddle?
That is a perfect analogy, yes. The pancake batter.
It just spreads out wide and flat.
Exactly. The lava spreads out layer by layer over millions of years, creating this broad, gently sloping dome that really just resembles a warrior shield resting on the ground.
Ah, hence the name.
Right. And the sheer scale of this resulting shield is staggering. To put it in perspective, this single volcano occupies more than 75% of the entire island of Maui.
75%. Yeah. That is just hard to wrap your mind around. The volcano basically is the island.
It really is. I mean, the peak stands at 10,023 feet above sea level.
Wow.
But the real focal point of this excursion is the crater near the summit. Because it's a shield volcano, you aren't hiking to a tiny little vent at the top of a pointy peak.
Right, because it's like the pancake.
Exactly. You are visiting a massive erosional depression. This crater is 2 miles wide, roughly 7 miles long, and nearly 2,000 feet deep.
Okay, see, here is where my skepticism kicks in.
I knew it would.
Well, yeah. When I hear volcano hike, and I hear we are going to a crater that is miles wide, I immediately picture 4 miles of staring at endless, sharp, monotonous black rocks.
Right, a wasteland.
Yeah, I'm picturing a giant parking lot made of lava. If I am leaving the lush, green, tropical beach, I am going to need more than just a wide expanse of gray rock.
And that is the exact assumption that keeps people on the beach.
Totally.
But it's precisely what the reviews completely shatter. What makes this specific excursion pass tour so highly rated is that it is not a monolithic 4-mile slog through one environment. The hike is actually split into two entirely different 2-mile segments. You're exploring two radically different ecological zones on the mountain.
Wait, so you aren't just walking in a straight line for 4 hours?
Not at all. The operator has designed this as a study in contrasts. Your first 2-mile segment starts much lower down, around the 8,000-foot elevation mark.
Okay.
And contrary to your expectation of black rock, this trail is surprisingly lush.
How is anything lush at 8,000 feet on a volcano?
It's all about the weather patterns. In Hawaii, the prevailing trade winds blow in from the northeast, carrying moisture off the ocean.
Right.
As that wet air hits the massive slopes of Haleakala, it gets forced upward. As it rises, it cools and condenses into clouds and rain.
Makes sense.
But there is a temperature inversion layer around 8,000 to 9,000 feet that actually traps most of this moisture. So just below the summit, you have this incredibly unique microclimate where rare flora and fauna thrive.
So you're actually hiking through a vibrant living ecosystem on the side of this massive rock.
You are.
Mm-hmm.
And the guides point out species that literally do not exist anywhere else on Earth. The most famous is the Haleakala silver sword, or the Ahina.
Oh, I saw photos of this in the source materials. It looks completely bizarre.
It really does.
Like a spiky silver yucca plant that just kind of glows.
The visual is stunning, but the biology behind it is what's truly fascinating. It looks silver because the plant is covered in thousands of tiny, dense hairs.
Hairs?
Yeah, little hairs. And they serve a dual purpose. First, they act as a parabolic reflector, bouncing the intense, high-altitude, ultraviolet radiation away from the plant so it doesn't just bake in the sun.
That is incredible. It literally grows its own UV protective sun shield.
It does. And second, those hairs trap the tiny droplets of moisture from the clouds that roll in.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they direct the water down to the roots in an environment where the porous volcanic soil usually drains water away almost instantly.
It's just rock, basically.
Exactly. This plant can live in this harsh environment for up to 50 years. And then, at the very end of its life, it sends up a massive stalk, sometimes 6 feet tall.
6 feet. That's huge.
It's massive, and it's covered in hundreds of maroon flowers. It blooms once, scatters its seeds, and then it dies.
It sounds more like a sci-fi novel than a hiking trail. You're just walking among these shimmering silver spheres that spend half a century preparing for one grand finale.
That is the 8,000-foot trail, vibrant, green, and full of rare life.
Okay.
But then, for the second 2-mile segment, the tour takes you up through that cloud inversion layer all the way to the 10,000-foot summit crater.
And this is where it changes.
Radically shifts. Because you are now above the moisture, it is bone dry.
So all the green just completely vanishes.
It disappears. You step out into a sweeping desert-like scenery filled with towering volcanic cinder cones rising hundreds of feet from the crater floor. And the rock here isn't just black, it's vibrant reds, deep browns, and oranges.
Because of the iron oxidation, right?
Ugh.
The lava basically rusted over thousands of years.
Precisely. Reviewers consistently struggle to find earthly comparisons for this specific segment. The word otherworldly appears constantly.
I bet.
One reviewer, Hiker 123, stated it was quite literally like hiking on Mars.
Hiking on Mars.
Yeah. And another reviewer, June W., echoed this. She marveled at how one trail was so lush, while the other made them feel like an astronaut on an alien planet.
That juxtaposition is wild.
Yeah.
You get to experience a vibrant, complex tropical ecosystem and a barren, silent alien wasteland on the exact same day.
Yep.
I mean, that definitely beats sitting at the hotel bar.
Just a bit.
But this leads directly to my next major doubt.
Let me guess. The physical logistics.
Yes. If we're literally hiking on Mars in the afternoon after walking through a damp cloud layer in the morning, my immediate thought is survival gear.
Right.
If I am on a beach vacation, I pack swimsuits and flip-flops. I didn't bring winter coats, hiking poles, and survival kits.
No one does.
Right. So how do you manage a 9-hour excursion through extreme weather shifts without hauling an extra suitcase up a mountain?
Well, this is where the reviews really illuminate the value of using an operator like Hike Maui. The sources indicate that if you want to bypass the massive friction of planning and packing, This tour effectively acts as a cheat code for the mountain.
Okay, I love a cheat code.
They provide literally everything.
Define everything, because knowing me, I'd show up to a 10,000-foot summit in a tank top.
Well, they hand you a customized day pack the moment you arrive.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Inside, they provide heavy rainwear because, as we discussed, you are hiking through a cloud layer where the weather shifts in minutes.
Good point.
They pack mosquito repellent, extensive first aid gear, and all the heavy bottled water you need to stay hydrated.
Which you absolutely need at altitude. But what about the cold? Mars isn't exactly tropical.
They provide heavy fleece jackets for everyone.
No way.
Yes. Multiple reviewers specifically expressed deep gratitude for those jackets, noting that the wind chill at 10,000 feet can drop the temperature to near freezing, even when it's 80 degrees down on the beach.
Okay, I have to admit, that removes a massive mental hurdle. You essentially show up in athletic shoes, and they hand you a backpack containing a fully curated survival kit.
Exactly.
And looking at the itinerary, I see they even handle the food.
They do. They supply snacks to maintain your blood sugar during the climbs, and they cater a full lunch.
And the lunch options are just so wonderfully mundane for such an extreme environment.
They are, aren't they?
Yeah, you get a choice of a ham or turkey sandwich, peanut butter and jelly, or a garden burger. I just can't get over the mental image of sitting on the rim of a 2,000-foot deep alien crater, bundled in a fleece jacket, looking out over rust-red cinder cones and just munching on a classic PB&J.
It is the perfect contrast.
It really is.
It anchors the extreme adventure in a familiar comfort. And speaking of comfort, we have to talk about the transportation.
Oh, the drive.
Yeah, the road up to the summit of Haleakala gains 10,000 feet of elevation in just 38 miles. It is a relentless series of steep, blind switchbacks.
I've heard the drive alone is terrifying for visitors, especially in the dark if you are going up early.
Which is why the round-trip transportation they include is so vital. You aren't gripping the steering wheel of a rental car, praying your brakes hold out on the descent.
Thank goodness.
Right. You are in a comfortable vehicle, letting a local expert navigate the terrain. They pick you up right at your hotel or at the Kaului Park and ride specifically at the intersection of Highways 311 and 380, which makes it super easy to find.
Oh, that's really convenient. So your only job for the day is to literally just look out the window.
That's it.
There is one more logistical safety net I noticed on the ExcursionPass listing that I think is brilliant. The cancellation policy.
Oh, the free cancellation up to 24 hours before the tour?
Yes. It just takes the pressure off. When you book a vacation months in advance, you have no idea how you're going to feel on a random Tuesday in Maui.
Absolutely.
You might get a terrible sunburn the day before, or maybe the jet lag is hitting you way harder than expected. Knowing you can pull the plug 24 hours out with a full refund changes the psychology of the purchase.
It really does. It makes it a very low-risk decision.
Yeah.
It allows you to secure the opportunity without locking yourself into a potential burden. But even with all of that friction removed, the gear handed to you, the lunch packed, the driving completely outsourced, we do have to get real about the physical toll.
Right. Because no amount of fleece jackets or peanut butter sandwiches changes the biology of high-altitude exertion.
Exactly. The listing clearly states this requires a moderate physical fitness level, and it explicitly warns against pregnant travelers or anyone with heart or back problems participating.
Which makes sense, because at 10,000 feet, the barometric pressure is significantly lower than at sea level.
Yep.
This means the oxygen molecules in the air are spread much further apart. You are inhaling roughly 30% less effective oxygen with every single breath.
30% is a huge drop.
It really is.
Yeah.
At 10,000 feet, your lungs are basically trying to run a V8 engine on half the fuel.
Yeah.
Your heart rate spikes just standing still because your body is frantically trying to circulate what little oxygen it actually has.
Exactly the mechanism at play. And now, apply that biological stress to the actual terrain.
Right, the actual hiking.
Reviewer Chad D. left a comment that highlighted the stark reality of this. He noted that on the summit segment, the trail leads down into the crater. It is breathtaking. But if you choose to descend all the way to the crater floor, you have to eventually climb back up.
Oh, no.
Yeah, at least 1,000 feet in elevation just to get back to the van.
A 1,000-foot vertical climb.
And he specifically warned that there is absolutely zero shade on that climb.
Zero shade.
None.
That is the nightmare scenario for a casual tourist. You are gasping for thin air, your heart is pounding out of your chest, and you are roasting under the high-altitude sun on a vertical hike, Am I just going to be utterly miserable?
Well, it is a valid fear, and looking at the reviews, the altitude really does catch people off guard. One reviewer, Allergy, openly admitted that her kid got slightly nauseous and lightheaded from the thin air.
Oh, wow.
It is a biological reality you cannot completely avoid, but when you look at how the tour operator handles it, you uncover the true secret weapon of this entire excursion.
It's the guides, isn't it?
It's 100% the guides. They are the singular reason this extreme environment becomes accessible. If you read through the TripAdvisor reviews, it doesn't even sound like feedback for a company.
What do you mean?
It reads like a deeply devoted fan club for specific individuals. Reviewers are constantly shouting out their guides by name: Momo, Marco, Dave, Michael.
They sound like an elite tactical team.
They essentially are. What reviewers highlight over and over again is not just that the guides are friendly, but how mathematically perfectly they pace the hike.
It sounds like they act as human metronomes, manually overriding your body's instinct to rush so you don't burn out your limited oxygen supply.
That's precisely what they do. They are highly trained to monitor their groups for signs of altitude sickness.
Oh, it's comforting.
Very. They mandate water breaks, they force a slow, rhythmic cadence to the walk, and they completely eliminate any social pressure or feeling of being rushed.
Which brings us back to that review from Ala G, the one whose kid felt lightheaded. Her review is fascinating because she also mentions that she personally suffers from back and hip problems and, quote, pretty bad plantar fasciitis.
Wow.
And to top it all off, she forgot to bring hiking sticks.
Plantar fasciitis, back problems, and no hiking poles on a 1,000-foot vertical crater climb in thin air. On paper, that is a recipe for absolute misery.
It really is. But she gave the tour 5 stars. She specifically credited her guide, Marco, saying he made sure there was no rush at all, constantly monitored their group, and allowed her to complete the entire hike feeling fine.
That's amazing.
It proves the human metronome theory. They don't leave the weakest link behind. They recalibrate the entire experience around them.
Exactly. And while they are carefully managing your physical exertion, they are simultaneously managing your mental engagement. Because while you are catching your breath at a mandatory water stop, they don't just stand there in silence.
Right.
They fill that time with deep contextual knowledge.
Yeah, reviewer Renchard mentioned their guide, Michael. He noted that Michael wasn't just pointing at pretty rocks. He was steeped in the actual geological science, explaining the iron oxidation, the cinder cone formation, the flora adaptations.
But beyond the science, he was deeply knowledgeable about Hawaiian history and the mythology of the mountain.
And that cultural context is crucial. The native Hawaiian mythology completely changes how you view the landscape. Haleakala is not just a geological formation. It is a sacred site.
It really is. The name itself, Haleakala, translates to the House of the Sun.
The House of the Sun, why was it named that?
It ties back to the legend of the demigod Maui.
No.
According to the mythology, the sun used to race across the sky so quickly that the days were just too short. Maui's mother couldn't even dry her kapa cloth before night fell. So Maui climbed to the summit of Haleakala, hid in the crater, and when the sun came up, he lassoed its rays.
Wait, lassoed the sun?
Yeah, literally lassoed it.
Yeah.
He refused to let it go until the sun agreed to slow its journey across the sky, giving the people longer days.
Wow. So when you are standing in that crater, you aren't just in a volcanic depression. You are standing in the mythological snare where time itself was negotiated.
Exactly.
That completely changes the weight of the experience. It transforms a physical challenge into a cultural connection.
And to guide you through both the physical danger and the cultural weight requires a very specific type of expertise.
You know, investigating the broader background of this company, Hike Maui, gave me a lot of confidence in that expertise.
Oh, did you find something else?
Yeah, well, digging into their volcano hikes, I found out that this exact same crew guides like Momo and Dave also lead these wild rainforest expeditions.
The rainforest tours are a totally different animal.
Completely different. They are taking groups deep into the jungle, teaching them how to identify edible plants, and then literally guiding them on how to safely cliff jump off boulders into hidden waterfalls.
That really speaks to the caliber of their staff. These aren't just tour guides reading from a script on a bus.
No, not at all. They are high-level outdoor survivalists. One day, they are carefully pacing a family with plantar fasciitis through an alien desert at 10,000 feet, monitoring their oxygen levels.
Right.
The next day, they are analyzing water depths and hyping people up to hurl themselves off cliffs into lagoons. If anyone is going to safely extract me from a beach chair and guide me through the House of the Sun, it is someone with that level of diverse outdoor competence.
They are professionals at mitigating risk while maximizing awe. And that is the core value proposition of this excursion. It takes an environment that is naturally hostile to human life, a freezing, oxygen-deprived, barren crater, and makes it safe, comprehensible, and deeply meaningful without sacrificing the thrill.
So, synthesizing all these sources, what is the ultimate takeaway for you, the listener, trying to build the perfect vacation? The data points to a very clear conclusion.
What's that?
If you want a profound, unforgettable experience, the kind of memory that fundamentally anchors a trip, but you absolutely dread the friction of logistical planning, this operator is the ultimate solution.
I agree completely.
You get a highly curated, two-part journey spanning lush cloud forests and alien deserts. And all you have to do is put on the backpack they hand you and trust the human metronome leading the way.
It perfectly bridges the gap between rugged exploration and vacation convenience. But as you consider swapping a beach day for this summit, there is a lingering thought worth unpacking.
Quick, what is it?
It goes back to that translation of Haleakala, the House of the Sun.
It's such a poetic name.
It is, but think about the profound physical contradiction of that name based on the biology and geology we've explored today. You start on a tropical island famous for its balmy warmth and ocean breezes. You drive 10,000 feet up into the sky, getting physically closer to the sun than anyone else on the island.
Right, you are literally ascending toward the heat.
And yet, when you finally arrive at the House of the Sun, the reality violently subverts your expectation. You are met with freezing wind chills, you find a completely barren landscape stripped of green life, and you find an atmosphere so thin that your lungs struggle to fuel your body.
Irony is incredible.
It leaves you with a deeply philosophical question as you stand on the edge of that crater. What does it do to our human perspective when the place on this earth that is physically closest to the sun feels the absolute most like the freezing, isolated vacuum of deep space?
Wow, that is a thought that will definitely stick with you long after the adrenaline wears off. Going from the lush, silver-haired plants of the 8,000-foot trail to the freezing, rusted expanse of the summit crater isn't just a hike. It is a biological and geological masterclass that completely shatters your expectations of what Hawaii is supposed to be.
The absolute definition of shifting your perspective.